प्रभु तव मूर्ति विनोदकारी पलपन विसरे नहीं जो विसारी जुगल चरण सोल चिन्ह जेह नजर समीपे रहो हमारी एह नजर समीपे रहो हमारी एह घनश्याम महाराज निजे हरिकृष्ण महाराज निजे स्वामीनारायण भगवान निजे ठाकुर जी महाराज निजे सदगुरुदेव निजे। अनादि मुक्तराज महामुनि सदगुरु श्री मुक्तानंद स्वामी सेवित our dear Thakur Ji Maharaj, Mahamuni Satsangni Ma, mother of Satsang, Sadguru Shri Muktanand Swami, and our divine Sadguru, our divine Guru Parampara, our utmost dear, the one who has been working night and day for our liberation, our Puja Guruji, Puja Santo, and all of you Loyadham Parivar Bhakto, Jai Swaminarayan. Yuva course, week 2, is today's subject of Agna and Upasana. As we learned about the Mahamantra Swaminarayan in week 1, our Puja Guruji gave a beautiful theme for this new year for the Hindu calendar, Mahamantra Varsh. Mahamantra meaning the Mahamantra Swaminarayan. This year, how much ever bhajan we can do is the whole goal, is the whole theme of this whole year. Japs, writing the mantra. We have a beautiful app that you can use, counters, maras, however one can chant the Mahamantra Swaminarayan is the way to please Thakurji Maharaj, our divine Guru Parampara, Puja Guruji, Santo and Bhakto for this year especially. In week 1, we learned regarding the Mahamantra, and in week 2, we are going to learn about Agna and Upasana. That is the theme for week 2. Now these two elements, according to Sadguru Shri Gunatitan Swami, are the wings to going to Akshardham. What does that mean? A bird has 2 wings, and due to its 2 wings and its aerodynamic body, it is able to fly in the air with very little effort and ease. Now, without the wings or just with 1 wing, it is not possible for the bird to even go 5 feet in the air. Similarly, this world has many obstacles. This universe has many obstacles that we call Maya. And to become and soar beyond Maya, we need these 2 wings in the elements of Agna and Upasana. I'm sure many of you have heard of this word, Agna and Upasana. But just to give a simple meaning, Agna meaning the commands of God, and Upasana meaning the worship or the mode of worship of God. These 2 are the wings to going to Akshardham, as Gunatitan Swami has mentioned in his Vato. Without these 2 elements, it is not possible. Even in Bhagwan Swaminarayan's Divine Vachanamrut, these 2 elements are mentioned the most because one needs them in order to, number 1, become a mukt, and number 2, to go beyond Maya and go to Akshardham. So this course has been developed around these 2 elements, and from different sources of our Sampraday's scriptures, such as Nishkuran Kavya, Vachanvidhi, Kalyan Kanika, our Puja Guruji's Vato, the Vachanamrut, and Charitras that will support these two elements are comprised in this course so that we can easily understand these two elements. So without further ado, let's get started in this course. And we would like to go to the first, which is Vachan Vidhi. And there our Puja Kirtan Swami has sung this Vachan Vidhi Kadvu 4 that we would like to first listen to and then analyze shortly after.
पामर प्राणी पाम्या प्रभुता रही हरि आज्ञाय अनुसार आद्य अंत्ये मध्य मोटा थया ते तो वचन थी निर्धार सोवतनी एक बात छे नव करवो आज्ञा लोप राज करवानो रह्यो परो पन करावीए नहीं हरिने कोप.
Okay, beautifully. Swami sang a very nice stanza from the Vachan Vidhi Kadvu 4, as you saw. And from this whole, you can say, stanza, Nishkaran Swami is just mentioning the importance of Agna and saying that do not ever break the commands of God. No matter what happens, no matter if you have to go through pain, no matter if you have to suffer. There's been many characters, many Haribhaktas in the time of Sriji Maharaj, charitras of them and how they kept their dharam niyam. For example, Jivaram Joshi, who did not eat onion and garlic due to the, you can say, pressure of the king of that village, but instead he left his village, he left his property, just for not breaking the commands of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. Nonetheless, there's other characters that also followed, did not drink alcohol, instead said that, here, take this sword and cut my head off, and you can pour down alcohol through my throat, but I will not take my hand and drink alcohol myself. Abesi. Nonetheless, there's been devotees that have forsaken their life. Even the character of Dayo, who was forced to eat onion and garlic, was forced to take the kanti off, break the kanti off, erase the tilak chanlo, yet upon receiving Sant Samagam and the Mahamantra Swaminarayan, his father, who was always enraged when he saw his son doing pure devotion, became so enraged that he even killed his own son. But the more spectacular part of the story is, even at the age of 11 or 12, such a tender age, Dayo did not break the commands of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, even for the sake of blood relations, because he wanted to perform pure devotion and go to Akshardham. These are just a couple of stories that are on the surface level, but as we can understand that even in that time, Bhagwan Swaminarayan's time, devotees, Nan Santo and devotees, they followed commands to the most strict, just so that Bhagwan would become pleased. And currently, even our Puja Guruji, his life is revolving around these two elements of Agna and Upasana in such a way where they are like oxygen. Without these two elements, it would be a different story for Puja Guruji. His life, even the smallest of the smallest, may it be straining milk, Bhagwan Swaminarayan's Agna, or may it be washing clothes after some unpious person touches a sadhu, or may it be even the biggest agnas. Puja Guruji's life revolves around that, and it's so familiar to everyone around. All the santos, all the bhaktos know that Puja Guruji's life is revolving around Agna very much. And the more one follows Agna, according to Gunatitanand Swami, the more one's vasana burns. Agna meaning, obviously, first and foremost, the Shikshapatri. That is the code of commandments for us Swaminarayan Bhakto devotees. But nonetheless, if we can say according to the Vachanamrut, Kadira middle chapter 51, to follow the commands of the Ekantik Satpurush is the very reason for favorable circumstances and is also the cause of behaving as the Atma. In order to follow Bhagwan Swaminarayan's Agna, the Shikshapatri, it is not very difficult, but a mindset is needed, but more so practically in life, to have a Satpurush, to surrender oneself to the Ekantik Satpurush and to do what he says is the most greatest endeavor. It is more greater than doing tapasya, austerities. It is more greater than making donations. It is more greater than doing bhakti. Yes. Why? Because the soul is bound to Maya, and at this level, while the soul does bhakti, it is doing it with dehabhiman, or some kind of I-ness and minus. But the Ekantik Satpurush has seen the way. So if we listen to his words and do bhakti, suppose we do 1000 maras alone, by our mind's perspective, that will not get us enough merits or rajipo of Bhagwan, as only if we do one mara, but in the Agna of the Ekantik Satpurush, because he knows how to break that I-ness and minus. He knows how to become beyond Maya. That's why following the Agna of Bhagwan Swaminarayan is important, and as a sadhak, it is equally as important to follow the Agna of the Ekantik Satpurush through man, karma and vachan, through the mind, through the actions and through the speech. If one sadhak can follow this element of man, karma, vachan, samagam, then according to the Vachanamrut, everything will be done. His liberation will be granted and he will go to Akshardham, become a mukt and go to Akshardham. There is no doubt about it. That's how much weight Bhagwan Swaminarayan has put in following the Agnas of the Ekantik Satpurush first, before making any kind of decisions, before trying to follow Agnas by oneself. It is very, very important that a sadhak understands this process first, and then everything else will trickle down afterwards. So, in this Vachan Vidhi, Kadu 4, Nishkuran Swami is talking about the glory of following the Agna and never breaking the Agna of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. Now we want to move on to the Kalyan Kanika, our Puja Guruji's Vato. We are very fortunate to have these Vato that our Puja Guruji has done in his Katha and is recollected into a book. And from this book we would like to read from the chapter 1, Kanika 23, which states, "There are many means of ultimate liberation, but the most important one is the firm faith, conviction, and devotion of the form of God." As you can see, Puja Guruji's very, very keen nature to follow or to develop the firm faith and conviction of Bhagwan's form is mentioned in mostly his Vato. Maharaj says in the Vachanamrut, ultimate liberation is achieved only by having firm faith of God. If there is a little bit of deficiency in other means of liberation, then that would be okay. Dharma, Gnan, Vairagya are the part of the 5 religious vows to attain God. Even if there is a little bit of deficiency in them, that will be rectified. However, so before we move on to the however, Bhagwan Swaminarayan Puja Guruji has talked about the Vachanamrut. The Vachanamrut that he has mentioned in here, that he has talked about, is Kadara middle chapter 9th Vachanamrut. And Bhagwan Swaminarayan has stated that if maybe, this is not like Bhagwan is giving us a free get out of the jail free card or something like that, where he's saying, okay, no problem if you don't follow the Panchvartmans. No, you got to follow them, not intentionally break the rules of Bhagwan, but suppose deficiency does remain, Bhagwan is saying it's okay. But, however, even the slightest deficiency in conviction and devotion of God cannot be corrected, and it becomes an obstacle in the path of ultimate liberation. So, more importantly, Bhagwan is saying that, and Puja Guruji is mentioning in this Vato, that the conviction and devotion of the God is the most important element in attaining Bhagwan Swaminarayan's Akshardham, and this is Upasana. First part was Agna, and second part is Upasana. Here Puja Guruji is mentioning that, as according to Bhagwan Swaminarayan's words, he is dissecting and saying that if you cannot follow the most, it will be okay, but more so, deficiency in conviction of God and the devotion of God, if that has some kind of impurity, then that is a problem, and that will be an obstacle in the path of liberation. The cause of ultimate liberation is conviction and devotion of the form of God. This is Upasana. The cause, the main cause of ultimate liberation. Ultimate liberation, again, dear Bhaktos, is becoming beyond this cycle of life and death and permanently residing one's soul in the divine abode of Akshardham. That is ultimate liberation. There is nothing more than that. There is nothing higher than that. Meaning removing one's Atma from Maya, from all these realms, loks, everywhere, and just having it reside in Akshardham, engrossed in Bhagwan Swaminarayan's divine Murti. That is ultimate liberation. And the key here, it says, what is the key? Is conviction and devotion of the form of God. Conviction meaning understanding Bhagwan Swaminarayan to be the Supreme Lord of Lords, Sarvopari, as we know. Beyond everything, the cause of all avatars, the creator, destroyer, and sustainer of everything, the all-doer of every single thing, everything. Understanding Bhagwan in that level, and nonetheless performing his bhakti or devotion. Bhakti meaning Mada, Kathavarta, Pradakshina, Danvats, Mantra Jap, etc., so on and so forth. By performing this, one will definitely attain Bhagwan's Dham without any doubt. So now we would like to move on to the Vachanamrut Kadada, first chapter, 34. As for a devotee of God, whatever misery he suffers is due to negligence in observing God's injunctions for the sake of worthless objects, and whatever happiness he does experience is a result of following the injunctions of God. So Bhagwan Swaminarayan states, to become happy, follow the commands of God. If you want to become sad or miserable, just break the commands of God. That's it. Nonetheless, Bhagwan Swaminarayan says that if one, for the sake of worthless objects, sometimes the Jiva breaks Bhagwan's commands for worthless things, which have really little to none value, yet just because of the lack of wisdom, knowledge, we can say agnan, the soul falls into such kind of traps, and due to that, it breaks the commands of God. But Bhagwan is saying, if you want to become happy, follow my commands. If you want to become miserable, then just break my commands. That's it. Very simple. Moving on to the Gadada, first chapter, 56, Vachanamrut. Shriji Maharaj replied, many people become realized yogis, many become omniscient, many become deities, and thus attain countless types of greatness, including the highest state of enlightenment. All this is achieved through the force of upasana of God. Without upasana, though, nothing is accomplished. See, by worshipping Bhagwan, one becomes very, very great and powerful. Meaning not in this world, maybe one may realize or one may not realize. Not famous, not like that. More in spiritual strength. And that's why Maharaj has mentioned, one becomes a realized yogis. Yogis who can perform a lot of penance. Yogis that have a lot of tolerance levels. Many become omniscient. Omniscient become meaning all-knowing. This is all due to the upasana of God. Just by worshipping God, one can become omniscient. Many become deities, thus attain countless types of greatness, including the highest state of enlightenment. This is what we want to reach. As Loyadham Parivar Bhaktos, our goal is to sit in the pankti, sit in the row of muktos in Akshardham, meaning sit where the highest state of enlightenment muktos also sit. That's what we want. That is our goal. That is our mission. That is what we want to attain. Now, to attain that, one will need to have firm upasana, strong upasana, and also have firm, you can say, a mindset to follow the commands of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. All this is achieved through the force of upasana. Bhagwan has given us such kind of tricks and keys, master keys in the Vachanamrut, that just one sentence kind of ends it for the soul. If that soul can grasp that one sentence to completely change his or her life, that is the main thing. But sometimes as devotees, we read the Vachanamrut as kind of like a formality that, oh, santos are telling us to read the Vachanamrut, so we should read it. But in reality, even one sentence can burn countless sins from the past life. That's how strong this Vachanamrut is, if one reads it with love, admiration, and faith. So, Bhagwan Swaminarayan's Vachanamrut is no little, it's not a little book, but it's actually Bhagwan's form itself that one should respect and read with love and admiration and faith. Even if one only reads one paragraph or one sentence, but if one can remember that sentence and kind of play it in one's head as a reel throughout the day, slowly the soul will absorb that knowledge, and through that one's soul will start to become Brahmarup, or become one with God. That is the main goal. And finally, in this course, Vachanamrut Kadada, first chapter 31. Greatness is due to one's faith in the manifest form of God and the observance of His commands. However great a person may be in worldly matters, if he lacks these two attributes, then he is still ordinary. Bhagwan Swaminarayan's measurement of greatness is completely different from our measurement. Sometimes when we come to Mandir, we see a devotee doing a lot of mara, a lot of pradakshina, a lot of danvats. I'm not saying this is wrong, reading a lot of scriptures. And from there we can we kind of put this mindset that this is a very great devotee. And he may be a great devotee, I'm not saying he's not. But sometimes the one who's sitting in the corner, maybe just, doing the mara but nothing else, we may look at him as ordinary. But in reality, the measurements from our perspective are completely different from the measurements of Bhagwan Swaminarayan's perspective. And Maharaj says that greatness is due to one's faith in the manifest form of God and the observance of His commands, meaning upasana and agna. Greatness is due to that. Greatness meaning in satsanga. You know how we say this is a great devotee. Aha bhagat bahut mota chhe. Mota meaning what? Agna and Upasana. However great a person may be in worldly matters, if he lacks these two attributes, he is still ordinary. One may be a CEO, one may be the president of a mandir, one may be a trustee of a mandir, one may be a very, very highly noble person in mandir, but if he does not have Agna or Upasana, then he is ordinary in the eyes of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. May the world worship him as great, but in the eyes of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, he is very ordinary. Therefore, we should change our lens, change our perspective on how we look at devotees of God, and take Bhagwan Swaminarayan's perspective and wear those glasses and view bhaktos. That's the only way to become happy, and that's the only way to really judge a person if one has been given that task to do. So, nonetheless, in short, Agna and Upasana are the two wings. Nonetheless, greatness is due to how much Agna and Upasana one has. So therefore, one should not measure through one's perspective, but should take the perspective of Bhagwan Swaminarayan and understand the devotee's greatness through that way. So this marks the, you can say, the whole you can say scriptures part of this course. But now we would like to move on to the Charitra part of the course. And the Charitra title here, this is based on Agna of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. Babubai became a ghost. Now, from this title, you'll probably be able to tell that this is not going to go well. This Charitra is going to go a little different from maybe you wanted to hear a happy Charitra, but the soul or the human's mind is only capable of following the commands if it has some kind of fear instilled into it. If one has no fear instilled into it, then one is going to just live about one's life in a very, very normal way. Even if one breaks commands of Bhagwan, he doesn't really have any kind of hurt or any kind of remorse due to that. In order for remorse, in order for misery, in order for pain to occur, one has to be shown a fear of an element of fear through breaking the Agna of God. If one breaks the Agna, this will happen. That's why Sadguru Shri Nishkuran Swami wrote the Yamdan and displayed many types of miseries. Even in this Yamdan, there is drawings of that time, how these monsters look, and these monsters and what kind of torture they gave people who broke the commands of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, or just broke commands in general. And from that perspective, if even one person reads that Yamdan, one would become very frightened and would never want to break the command of God. In the same way, this Charitra 1 of Bapubai became a ghost similarly goes down those lines. So without further ado, let's read the Charitra and analyze accordingly. There is a devotee named Bapubai who lived in Ahmedabad. He was of the Nagar caste. When Maharaj performed the Maharudra in Daban, he became a devotee. Maharudra is a type of yagna, which you have to sacrifice, different kinds of things, and it's a big yagna. Let's put it that way. It's a fire ritual that Bhagwan performed in Daban. Considering him as a good devotee, Maharaj entrusted him to keep account of all donations presented to Maharaj by other devotees. So he is given the seva of accounting, kind of like a kotari, or a person who manages you can say the money affairs of the event. Maharaj was so trusting that he would neither verify nor audit the accounts maintained by Bapubai. Now Maharaj was performing a charitra, obviously. He knew exactly how Bapubai was, but Maharaj was kind of going blind on this one, and he wasn't auditing, he wasn't He wasn't inquiring how much came in, how much went out, how much income, how much profit, how much deduction, what was going on. He wasn't really inquiring of Bapube because he trusted Bapube as a good devotee. Bapube did this seva for 3 to 4 years, but never kept proper records of incoming donations, however, in his accounts. So he was a little shady, let's put it that way. He used to make false entries for expenses he incurred for Sri Hari. False entries of expenses. So suppose 10,000 came in, he would only write 8,000 and take 2,000 for himself. Stuff like that. When Maharaj started doing Maharudra, devotees from nearby villages used to pledge donations of ghee, which is clarified butter, in varying quantities as per their capabilities. Until Maharaj completed Maharudra, a large quantity of ghee was received from pledges ranging from 10 shir to 10 man, meaning this is going in like the 100 kgs. Like ghee is very expensive even right now, and in that time, obviously too, it's probably very, very expensive. It was very hard to make. Nonetheless, it's rich, and it's used in a lot of sweets in Indian tradition. So there's a lot of ghee that was given as a donation in the Maharudra from devotees. All devotees from nearby villages had came with a list of names of people who had pledged donations of ghee. When they got a chance to do darshan of Maharaj, they offered this list in the lotus feet of Sri Hari. Sri Hari would read their list. After that, devotees offered Maharaj the money equivalent to the cost of ghee they had pledged. So suppose they had pledged 5 kilos of ghee and that was 10,000 rupees. Then the devotees would give 10,000 rupees and pretty much, and that would be their form of ghee. Baba took all this money, but he did not record them in his account. Number one mistake. He embezzled large sums of money. So suppose that in total he got 500,000 rupees. He would show like 300,000 or like less. Like it would not be the accurate number that you would have to show as an accountant. Not only that, he then came to Maharaj asking for 10,000 to 12,000 rupees to pay bills. After hiding, first and foremost, he hid the number that he actually received and kept the other money for himself. He had the courage to go to Maharaj and ask for 10 to 12,000 rupees as kind of like he was insufficient in funds. He needed to pay bills. He was acting in that way. Maharaj paid all the bills. Maharaj knew all this. Obviously, Maharaj is omniscient, so he obviously knew that what was going on, but he played along. Then Maharaj wrote a letter to Bapube. Obviously, Maharaj, his ways are different. We may react, if we found out, we may react in a different way. We may become enraged. We may do something that we're not supposed to. But Bhagwan Swaminarayan, what did he do? He wrote a letter. That's all he did. He wrote a letter to Bapube and telling him that he is free from his duties of keeping accounting. He's saying that, I don't need you anymore as an accountant. You did good as you did. Now you can do something else. So Maharaj did it in a very, very sly way. Nonetheless, Maharaj also kept 10 people as his witness while writing this letter. So people would know that in reality, Bhagwan himself wrote this, and this is passed on to Bapube. After some time, when Bapube died, now here's when it gets a little interesting. You know how we're talking about the subject of following the Agna of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, and the fear of breaking the Agna of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. The interesting climax part of the story is now coming, where what happened to Bapubai after he died, and what is the consequences of embezzling money, showing false records, things like that, asking for money, and then completely just like going away from the scene. All these things happened in a very short period of time, and in result, when Bapubai died, he became a ghost and possessed his real brother's body and said, "I cheated Maharaj and embezzled all money. Thus I have spoiled my liberation. I betrayed the trust of Maharaj had put in me. I am such a big sinner." He regretted his mistake, obviously, because he knew that he did wrong. He knew he was doing wrong, but at that time he was caught in the moment. You cannot do anything. If he had understood that this is Maharaj, and I cannot do this even if it was not Maharaj, if it was someone else, then how can I do this in front of Maharaj? If he had understood this point, then even so, a little bit of light would came into his head and he would have kind of backtrailed, but that wasn't the case. He also said, "I never spent any money of my own for Maharaj, and I kept hatred towards saints." He kept hatred towards saints. Hence, even after becoming satsangi, my intellect became contaminated. Very, very important. Understand, Bhaktos, that this Bapubai did not become a ghost only because of embezzling money. Do not only think it that way, but he also became a ghost because he had hatred towards saints, and he had hatred towards devotees. He did not like any of it. He was just doing this accounting job. Due to that factor, his intellect became contaminated, and due to his intellect becoming contaminated, he embezzled money, and due to that, he had to become a ghost. But it all started with hatred towards the sant, and then it trickled down to everything else. I never saw any fault within myself, and that was my biggest sin. For all of us Loyadham Parivar devotees, the biggest sin that we can do is to judge others, judge saints, judge haribhaktos, but nonetheless, to not look at one's faults, to only look at one's good qualities, and to look at everyone else's faults. That is the biggest sin that will make you fall from satsang. Bhagwan Swaminarayan has mentioned this point of looking at one's faults and looking at others' qualities the most in the Vachanamrut. Why? Because he knows that if a devotee wants to survive in this satsang fellowship, he needs to look at the good qualities of everyone, and he needs to look at his own bad qualities. There is no other way. There is no other way. You have to introspect, you have to perform antardrashti, and you have to find yourself. You cannot just continue to look around and let the world go by and we stand there without any progress. One needs to progress. One can progress by looking at one's faults and looking at others' qualities. That is the only way. And the biggest sin that Bapubai admitted as a ghost was he did not do this. All these saints and devotees exactly follow all the rules of satsang, so they are mukto of Akshardham. Due to following the rules of Maharaj, they became mukto of Akshardham. They are true friends of the jiva, meaning they are the true benefiters of the soul. These santos and bhaktos who follow the commands of God. Whoever sees faults in such innocent saints and devotees, he is doing a sin in a place which can eradicate his sins. On Kartak Shud 12th, in an assembly gathered in Jetalpur, the ghost of Bapubai addressed this whole vat that I just read. He added, "O Hari, I have offended you and the saints. Now I have become a ghost. I have realized my sins. O Hari, please give me punishment as the wishes of the Santo. I will never ever repeat my mistake. Please bless me that I never do such kind of an offense again. Otherwise, I will never be able to gain liberation. Sinners like me will not understand without getting punished. Without punishment, no other methods can give that understanding. My father's name was Mugatram, and he was a staunch devotee. Maharaj then replied, now you will take one more birth in satsang and become a staunch devotee, firm devotee. If you will behave honestly with attitude of servitude, with santo, then all of your misery will go away. If one remains deceitful after becoming a devotee, then he has to suffer that much misery to become purified, clean. Without suffering, a deceitful person can never become honest. Now, the most important part that I found here was Bhagwan's Dayaruta, Bhagwan's forgiveness, his ability to forgive. But nonetheless, what Maharaj said was that if you want to go to Akshardham, behave honestly and have the attitude of servitude with the Sant, meaning become the das na das of the Sant. If you want to go to Akshardham, this is what you have to do. If you want to become free from this cycle of life and death, become the das na das of the Sant. Ekantik Satpurush, Santo Bhakto. This satsang is very divine. And becoming the das na das of this satsang of everyone that I mentioned is the very reason for staying in this satsang fellowship. If one can do little mara or a lot mara, or one can do a lot of pradakshina, or read a lot of scriptures, or read little scriptures, or do little pradakshina, that's not the most weighted element. The most weighted element is to become the das na das of the satsang fellowship and do their seva without doing any kind of dro, insulting, looking at negative thoughts of others, and only looking at one's avguns, only looking at one's faults. One can progress and go to Akshardham. This is the best way. This is the only way that Bhagwan Swaminarayan wants us to take, according to his abhipray, according to his wish, according to the Vachanamrut. So this was Charitra 1. Charitra 2, we've read before, I'm sure you've heard of many times. This is the Upasana Charitra of the Mahamantra and how it manifested of Sital Das, who became Vyapkanand Swami. Bhagwan Swaminarayan had him perform Samadhi, went to Akshardham, and everything happened from there, so on and so forth. And then he came down again from Samadhi and developed firm conviction of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. Very first sadhu that Bhagwan Swaminarayan initiated was Sital Das, and he named him Vyapkanand Swami. And that is just a short story. You'll be able to find the whole story in the course week 2. So this is our week 2 course of Agna and Upasana, the theme, and it is very important for us Loyadham Parivar devotees, as our Puja Guruji has this this inclination of following the Agna and Upasana of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. As us Loyadham Parivar Bhaktos, we should also have the same to attain Bhagwan Swaminarayan and Puja Guruji and Santo Bhaktos Rajipo. Saying this, my humble Jai Swaminarayan.